If your family is anything like mine, and it may or may not be, but if you have ancestors who came over here a long time ago from England, you probably have some Old Testament names that are floating around in your family. Maybe not so long ago. I grew up with a great grandfather who was called Bab, B A B, which was short for Absalom. It was a diminutive of Absalom. Well, that didn't seem strange to me as a boy. It was great grandfather Absalom, Absalom Woodward Montgomery. Uh, until I learned the story of David and his son Absalom. And then I wondered, why on earth did my great great grandfather name his son after the wicked son of David, the wicked and rebellious son of King David? Then I realized it was because his great grandfather's Absalom Woodward and his great grandfather had the same name, and he had come over with the Puritans, who all chose Old Testament names, or even stranger ones. And it was simply that, and not that my great-grandfather was a wicked and rebellious son. Relief. Tradition, not reality. In our current reality in the church and in the world, we don't see a lot of unity, do we? We see a lot of disunity. People say that the last time there was unity in the church was at the Last Supper. And even then, one guy left early and was dead before dawn. And before the next day ended, everyone had scattered. When we were with the Bishop of the Northeast a month or so ago, my wife asked the very same question to Bishop Webb, and he said, it's easy to explain the divisions in the church over the centuries. It's because everyone keeps fighting about three words. Who's in charge? Who's in charge? The reality being, I want to be in charge. We see that in today's lesson, where Absalom, trying to supplant his father David, sits outside the gate. And as people come to his father seeking justice, he ingratiates himself with them, and subverts his father's authority, undermines his father's authority, destroys his father's trust with his people. You may have had that happen in your life, at work, or personally, or professionally. It happened to David, and as a result of it, he ended up having to leave the city to insulate himself from rebellion. Saint Apollinaris today was, by tradition, consecrated bishop by Peter himself and sent to Ravenna. Ravenna, I remember it well, is the home of the San Vitale Cathedral, that Byzantine-era octagonal building with the Empress Theodora and the Emperor Justinian in mosaics, which was on the cover of my Western civilization textbook as a boy. the emblem of Western civilization was an Eastern emperor. San Vitale, this 6th century church, their bishop, Apollinaris, of that region, was not well received in the 1st century. Every time he began to be successful, the local imperial thugs would beat him half to death. He couldn't succeed. He kept trying and trying to live into his calling as bishop of that diocese, as pastor to his people. And whenever he and the Lord seemed to be succeeding, secular powers would come in and literally beat him half to death. We are called to resist these powers. We're called to identify those plotting against us and against God's will in our lives. We're called to resist those and stand firm in the face of adversity when those who would destroy God's plan in this world come up against us. Where do you see that happening in your life? Where do you see that happening in the world around you? How can you become an agent of stability, an agent of strength, an agent of God's grace in this world? How can you be like David and step aside of rebellion? How can you be like Apollinaris and stand up to the bullies of this world? Can you think of examples of people in your day who have done just that? And can you pattern your life on them as well? May today we take examples not from the secular thugs of Apollinaris' time, but from Apollinaris, not from my great-grandfather's namesake Absalom, but from David, and be not the negative force, but the positive, not the thuggish force, but the grace-filled, not the force of evil, but the force of good in this world.